Hello, hello, and welcome to a new episode of Whispers of Inner Power, the interview series for sensitive women, highly sensitive women in business. Today, I'm joined by Gabrielle Treanor, who is a Gen X ADHD coach and author, helping introverted sensitive women with ADHD or suspected to understand their brains, build inner calm and confidence to be themselves. Thank you so much for joining us, Gabrielle. How are you today?
Oh, thank you for having me, Jessica. I'm very well, thank you.
It's so good to have you. You were recommended to me via Claire Venus, who was on the series a bit a few weeks ago, months ago, and so I'm so happy that she introduced me to your work. When I read more about what you do, I was like, this is exactly the type of experience and issues and obstacles that I have, and that the women in my world also have. But before I say more, tell us a bit more in your own words. What do you do? What's the work you do? Tell us about you.
Oh, Claire Venus is just wonderful, isn't she?
Yes, she
Yeah,
is.
she's a diamond, that woman. So yes, I am a coach and an author and a writer. I essentially kind of what you read out on the bio. I support women often sort of around life, but certainly discovering their ADHD later in life. So they might have a diagnosis, or they might just have an inkling. They might be sure, but they don't need to go for diagnosis, whatever. But at any rate, they are identifying with what they are reading and learning about ADHD, and they have
Mhm.
gone most of their life completely oblivious and clueless to it, and then discovering it later in life, and it's hitting them like a bit of a sledgehammer. And so, yeah, I support them through one-to-one coaching, through my online membership, the Quiet ADHD Club, and I realized that I have actually been doing this a really long time. I just wasn't aware of it because I've been a coach for quite a long time,
Mm.
sort of 8, 9 years or so. And I had been supporting women with people pleasing and perfectionism and procrastination and overthinking and overdoing and overwhelm and all of those things. And it was only when I discovered my own ADHD a couple of years ago, so at the age of 48, pretty late in life, that it all just fell into place, not just my life, but my work. And I realized so much of what I had been supporting women with is the underlying kind of features and the life of an undiagnosed, unrecognized ADHD woman. That doesn't mean that every person I worked with had ADHD, but I think probably a fair chunk of them did. But it suddenly just made so much sense that actually this is what is going on here. This is what is feeding so much into the perfectionism, the people pleasing, and all the stuff I just listed.
Mm.
So it all just made perfect sense, and it just crystallized everything for me. So yeah, so that is what I do.
Thank you so much for sharing. And you already shared a bit of your journey, how you came to do that. I think it's really interesting what you said because you know you name some of the typical common points that women with ADHD have and experience, and it's not in my mind earlier before there was so much talk and awareness around ADHD, especially female ADHD. um, it didn't even cross my mind because for me ADHD is like you're going to be hyperactive, you're going to be and I'm essentially a very calm person. I haven't been diagnosed; it's suspected. It came to me. I mean, the first time that people were telling me about ADHD, I was like, no, like it's not me. Like I'm organized. Yeah, I have systems. Like I get things done. I finished my task. So it's not I don't have that for sure. Then I started to learn more about it and I started everything you named, you're like, yeah, pretty much crossing all of that. And I find it's sometimes really hard to consider that you might have ADHD because these elements, this experience of people pleasing and procrastinating, all of that, they're also part of being highly sensitive. They're also part of having had to deal with trauma in childhood, for instance. Like everything is very interconnected in some way. And to me, my point of like really considering it was reading the book by Gabor Mate, Scattered Minds, where he mentioned in the very first pages that it has to do, with something with if you grew up with stressed parents, for instance, or if you were estranged, or you had a moment of disconnection, especially from your mother as an infant, it usually creates something to do with ADHD. And he was like, most of the people who have been adopted have ADHD, and I was adopted, and I was like, huh, let me read the rest of that book because that starts to make sense. So there's a lot of talk around it. There's a lot of people who are, like with everything that becomes in the radar, like everyone starts questioning, oh, everyone has ADHD these days. What's your reaction to that, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, and it's certainly something that I think could be a real barrier for women,
Yeah,
because I completely hear you on, but I can't have it because I'm organized and I have systems and I don't, I'm not late for things. I don't lose stuff. And actually, what I did when I
oh,
when I
I'm
first
late for
started,
things, by the way. I'm very late for things. But please go ahead.
what I did when I first started to learn about it, and little bells were beginning to ring in my head, but I was thinking, no, 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 that's not it. That I'm just looking for excuses to explain my shortcomings and my struggles. And if, basically the ways that I'm just a bit crap, I'm trying to find an excuse for it. And so I actually started a document essentially listing all the ways that I couldn't possibly have ADHD because, I'm organized. I don't forget people's birthdays. And then I stopped and thought, okay, that might be because I actually have 27 lists and 1,000 calendar alerts. That could have something to do with it. Okay. But you know what? I don't lose stuff. I do have everything in its place. And if it's not in its place, I haven't the faintest idea where it is. Okay. And I basically was just going through all the kind of, I don't miss deadlines. No, but what I do is I put it off until, a time before, when I then freak out so much about the fact that I think I'm going to miss it. I then now know hyperfocus like a mad woman, and totally dive in and get it all done and then have it done early. So I was trying to find all the ways, like, this can't be true, this must just be an excuse. And then I went back and looked at my childhood because, exactly like you say, there can be actually lots of things to do with, this perimenopause, that, that is memory issues, that executive function issues. I then started to look at kind of like, all right, what's actually the criteria here? It's not just listening to other women's experiences. It's not the fidgety little boy in school. Let me look at the criteria. Okay, childhood. Let me go back to childhood. Let me look at all the ways. Look at, let me remember what, names I used to get called,
Mhm.
whether they were loving names or not. But at any rate, like my mum called me grasshopper mind, which it wasn't a criticism. It was a sweet term, but grasshopper mind. Um, thinking about what did my school reports say, all the stuff I struggle with. So I really kind of worked at, first of all, trying to find all the reasons I didn't have ADHD, and then looking at actually what was the evidence that there is. But I don't know how many women get to that point, because actually maybe they just get so kind of put off by the idea that, they have heard family or friends or just read things of people, dismissing it, rolling their eyes. It's, another bandwagon that jumping on, you're just trying to get attention.
Mhm.
You're trying to be trendy, la la la. And they never actually get into that real sort of research and investigation place, and therefore give up on it, when actually it is something that could completely be true for them, and it could explain so much for them, and it could make such a difference to them if they had this understanding about them. But because of the world's attitudes that tell women that, no, you're the problem, actually, it's a fault within you, and you're just looking for excuses, and you're just trying to jump on the bandwagon and be trendy, then that just gets in the way of too many women. And it really makes me quite cross. The other thing is that I think that very quickly sort of stereotypes can appear. So we had that fidgety little boy in class. That is what everybody, and certainly, before I started looking into it, that was what I thought ADHD was.
Mhm.
And then I think you have sort of new stereotypes appear, whereby actually, okay, so, fine, well, the world will allow women, all right, you can have ADHD too, and you show up differently. But actually, what you look like is you're very flamboyant, you're very colorful, you dye your hair, you're very outwardly chaotic, you're very, kind of exuberant. And that's actually, here we've got another stereotype. We now pigeonholed you into this type of presentation. And again, it's like, what if I don't fit in that? That's what I'm seeing. And so I can't have it because I don't come across as being extremely exuberant and extroverted and colourful and flamboyant and outwardly chaotic. And like you say, but I'm organized, but actually I'm quite calm and contained. And people tell me how calm I am and how responsible, and oh, she's organized, she'll get it done. So therefore that can't be me. But it's just that you're looking a different way to how other people look. And that perhaps hasn't got as much attention. And when I had my assessment and I had my diagnosis given to me, when I closed the laptop, the first thought that popped into my head was, where are all my quiet ADHD women? That was the very first, and it wasn't where are the, it was where am I? And it was that thought of, where is everyone else like me? Because I can't be on my own on with this. I can't be the only one, because you're never, whatever you've got going on, you're never the only one experiencing this in the planet. And I thought, where are they? Because I've learned from some incredibly wonderful, generous women who have really shared, in so many different ways. And because of them, that's how I've learned about it. But they were quite different to me. Where are the people, where are the women like me who are just quietly getting on with life? Inside, they are pedaling like furious, the gliding on the water, but the paddling going on underneath is furious. And getting like to the absolute end of the tether, but nobody else is seeing that. And they're not exuberant, and they're not flamboyant, and they're not outwardly chaotic. They're like me, they're quite contained and calm on the outside, but it's all happening on the inside. Where are they? They have to be out there. I want to find those women so that they know that they're not alone, because it doesn't feel nice to be alone with this. So that's why I started talking about it, and that's why I started sharing about it. And also to the hope, to come back to your original question, where I've meandered off from, to hope that it would help women to realize, oh, okay, actually, this could be for me. This is not a bandwagon thing. This is not a trend thing. This is not, it only looks one way. Actually, maybe this is something that does apply to me, and I could get support.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love everything that you said. I recognized so much. And I wanted to react to something because, as you were saying, like, I, just like you, I'm not necessarily exuberant or anything like that. My mind, I really feel like my mind is going in a thousand directions at the same time. And I think that's why we're good at coaching as well, because like I see 10 solutions to your problem right away. Let's find out which ones are the right for you. And sometimes it's hard to just be, I don't know, to appear eloquent, I think, just because my mind picks up so many things that I write much better than I speak. I keep saying that. But when I read some of the signs, or I don't want to call that symptoms because it's not a disease, but some of the experiences that we have, I think that for me, I did the same thing as you. I went back to what did teachers say at school and university, because I was a good student, and I managed my studies, and I studied really well at university. So again, it can't be me, like you were saying. But what were they saying? And there's this recurring criticism, I cannot put it in another way, of your stuff, but you're at the surface, or you know everything a bit. And I remember feeling so much shame for that. Like, oh, like you said, there's something wrong with me. Why can't I be more precise and in depth with everything? And I felt really, oh, this is me. It's because I'm always in the clouds. I'm always thinking about something else. I'm always, I'm not focused enough. I don't maybe care enough to go really into depth into everything. And I feel for me to I think I watched a video of someone explaining that this was their experience, and I was like crying, I think, for it just made me feel relieved and at the same time angry, for having internalized that criticism, that there's something that's flawed within me and so I cannot do better. And it's about that. It's the details. For me, it's the details. I do a lot of things. I am good at what I do, but I won't get the details straight right away. Like this is something I do after so in my kitchen when I cook, it's like everything's open, everything, all the cupboards are open. And my husband's a bit OCD, so it's like the opposite. He comes and is like, "Why do you always leave such a mess behind?" Like, this is how my brain works. Just open stuff and take what you need, and then you'll figure it out, you know? And it is this constant being gauged against what is neuronormal, you know, and to be like, "Oh, this is what I should be like, and you're upset with me, but I did my best here. It's my best. It really is my best. And if you believe that I'm flawed, then I am. And that's it, right? And like you said, it's also the thing that you don't want to enter in like, oh, this is just another excuse for not doing better or for not improving yourself. But it's really, really, really hard. So thank you so much for sharing that. Once you had your diagnosis, um, what changed for you, and how did you maybe further adapt your life or business to this knowledge?
I think the biggest thing was recognizing those old stories I took on from being very little about how I needed to pick a thing and stick with it. That was a really big one for me, in that I
Mm,
just had way too many hobbies and too many interests. I was, erratic was the word that popped up on my school report more than anything else, because I'd get really interested and excited about a thing and then get bored and go off it. And that was something I got criticized for a lot. And so being able to identify that as, oh, you know what, that's not actually a personal failing. That's not a character flaw within me that says I'm bad at sticking to stuff and I'm bad because I don't stick to stuff. It's just not the way my brain is wired. And there is a good reason for it. And so being able to recognize stories like that really helped me to start dropping the shame
mm,
of, actually, it's not that I'm at fault here. It's that my brain works differently. And there are things that I can stick to, but they have to work for my brain. I have to find ways to make them work for it. And actually, looking back, there are things that I have stuck with for a very long time. How is that? Oh, that's because actually I found lots of interesting ways to bring new elements into it, or to change how I did things, or to make it interesting. And the things that I didn't stick with were things that there was no maneuvering at all. There was no space to change stuff. So being able to recognize old stories that I took on, that I was at fault, and to learn that actually I'm not at fault, that actually my brain works differently. And those things were difficult for me, not because I wasn't trying hard enough, not because I'm not a good person, but because the way they were set up weren't working for the way my brain is wired. Huge difference. Could absolutely shed the shame, and therefore be able to then say, right, so here's the thing I want to do. Now, in the past, I would have struggled with it, perhaps when I got to a point where actually it's not new and shiny anymore for, say a new thing. Um, and I would have dropped it, and then I'd felt bad about it, or I'd have made myself keep going with it, but it would felt really horrible and hard work. So instead, what's going to help me to keep going with the thing I want to keep going with, but do it in a way that is going to keep make it interesting and keep my focus and make it enjoyable and make it fun and lovely, and I want to keep doing it. How can I go about it? So it's not like I have, any of my learnings about myself have made me go, oh, well, now I can't do that thing, or I don't have to do that thing because I've got ADHD, so I can't do that thing. Oh, yeah, that's not for me. It's not that at all. It's more like, right, all the stuff I want to do, all the stuff I need to do, how is it going to work well with my brain, not
mm.
with how I thought I should do it, how other people do it, actually, what is going to work for me? And that just makes everything better.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And it immediately, I'm thinking of my audience who are highly sensitive, who sometimes have ADHD, and who are entrepreneur. And we tell you, for success, you need to be consistent. You need to pick one thing. You need to be niche. Like you do this thing and you do it for a long enough time, which is not 6 months, it's more like 6 years or more, to be able to get results. How do you think then it could be a strength for them to tap into, embracing their brain? How can they start doing that?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot that we dismiss that we can actually recognize as being real value in all the different things we do, all the different things we learn about. And that
Mm,
actually the side quests, the interesting paths we get pulled off to, that they're not a waste, that there will be something in there that will have fed into us in some way. It will, it might inspire us in some way. It might just be actual knowledge that we now know a piece of information we didn't know before. It'll all, it's all experience, it's all feeding in some way. And I mean, I'm now on my third career. And that used to be a real kind of embarrassment, or something I was ashamed of because I didn't pick a thing and stick to it. How can you do that if you're on your third career? So I was in publishing for 15 years. Then I ran my own stationery business for 7 years.
Love it.
And then I've been doing my coaching and wellbeing business for years. And it was learning that actually that's just the way my brain works. It's not designed to do one thing forever and ever. That actually there's real value in, and recognizing that having those other two careers have really, really fed into who I am and my business now. And just, the experience and the learning, the people I've met, the different ways of working, all of it has all fed in. So whatever you have done in your life, there will be value to it. Whatever path you've gone down in your business, it will all have fed in to
Mm.
you and your work in some way or another. And yeah, we do need to, be careful that we don't get completely sidetracked. And actually the thing that, we need to do, that we have made, commitments to or responsibilities for, the thing that pays the bills, that, we don't lose it. But it's not like we're going to be bad people for having gone off on those things. They will absolutely add to our
Yeah.
lives and our work in some way.
I love that reframe. It's so freeing to see it this way. I've changed careers and path. It's my third business. But I hear that like in myself and in people I talk to, really this again shame, but also this feeling of waste, like, oh, I've poured so much energy into learning everything about this, career, and now I'm starting something that's completely different. So what I've done before is wasted time and money, and what you're bringing is completely different. It's like, no, it's actually adding to your experience, so that in the end everything comes together. And when I look at myself, what I'm doing now, I told you I work with copywriting, web design and stuff. I started my career when I was 20 as a language teacher. I learned languages and literature, passionate about it. I was a English teacher for years, became a French teacher online, started my first business teaching languages, got interested into mindfulness and self-development, but it was too big of a jump. So I blended French learning with let's learn French mindfully. And I did that business for a while. Then I jumped that ship and then became just a coach. And then from there started writing, because you have to write when you are in business. And it's like, but I like that more now. And you know, but everything is really because now I write for people who are coaches and in the wellness industry. And so I know your audience. I know the principles. I have that empathy, and I bring my language skills, and I bring all of it together. And I just have an epiphany right now because I think up until where I was like, yeah, it's kind of connected, but really I spend so much time, and I like, yeah, actually everything is feeding into one another. Everything is bringing you to the next step of yourself, and it's not a flaw. It's maybe a evolution of you, really.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everything that you just said, I'm just sitting there thinking, to me, hearing somebody describe that makes me think, wow, this woman she's so knowledgeable. She is so experienced. Look at the curiosity that this woman has. Look at the creativity. Look at the resourcefulness, the resilience, the fact that she has tried all these different directions. She's done all these different things. My goodness, the woman will know so much stuff. She has so much experience. She'll work with so many people. Wow, that is a woman that I want to be knowing more about, because that's just incredible. But I can totally imagine in your head you're going, oh God, I'm changing direction again. What will people think? But actually, I think, wow, that sounds amazing. What incredible journey. And wow, where is this woman going to go? What else can
What's
this woman
next?
do?
I'm
Wow.
only 42, so much can happen.
It's like I've got to keep looking at this woman, because who knows where she's going to go next. This is so inspiring. Wowzers.
I
That's
love
what
the
I
way
think
you
when I
look at
hear
it,
that.
and I'm sure that lots of people who are going to hear this are going to feel really good by what you just said, because I know I'm not the only one, and it just, yeah, it changes the story really of how you look at yourself, and how you, wow, it's really cool.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm at the moment I'm organising a literary festival. I've never organised an event in my life. And I thought, "Do you know what? I have this idea." And I sat on it for ages like a good girl, thinking, no, don't go running ahead with it. Don't, don't be spontaneous
Mhm.
and get carried
Repress
away.
it.
So I exactly I sat on it for a while and I thought, it's not going away, I'm going to do it. So I'm now organising a literary event, which it turns out is the UK's first literary event focused entirely on wellbeing books. So that's
Wow.
exciting.
Really?
And I, having never done it before, but my connections from when I had my own wellbeing book published, that's come in handy because that helped me find some of the authors, helped me know about publishers and agents and what have you. My journalism background is helping me to contact um, magazines and go for press. And I know what people want in terms of when journalists are receiving press releases and emails and that kind of stuff. When I had my stationery gift business, I used to write press releases and I designed stationery, and now I'm designing merchandise for the festival. So all these things that I learned from all those
Yeah.
other careers are all now being useful when I'm doing something brand new that I've never done before. And there's still plenty of stuff that I know nothing about and I'm having to learn. But, I can see that the 30 years I've been working, those different careers are absolutely coming in handy now. The experience and the skills that I gained then are really I'm able to make use of them in this brand new thing that I've never done before that I'm trying to do.
I love that, and thank you so much for sharing because you just gave me the opposite experience of what you had before when I told you my story. It's like, what? What? It's amazing, Gabrielle, everything you've been doing. It's incredible. And it just makes me see, how when you just put the story outside of yourself, like automatically I'm in awe listening to everything you've been doing and how you've reached the point of doing this festival now is just completely amazing and crazy. But we don't have that same, I don't know, all for ourselves. We kind of have that judgment instead of having that look, outside look of being like, oh, you know what? It's not just enough. It's more than enough. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I think
That is
sometimes we
so
need to
cool.
actually kind of externalize it
Yeah.
to be able to really kind of look back at everything that you have done and recognize the imagination in there, the resourcefulness, the persistence when you have been learning languages, when you've been learning you know new programming, you've been learning all these new skills, all that. And to actually stop and properly reflect on it and go, hang on a second, yeah, I've done a load of stuff, but I've done a load of stuff, and look what I have learned, and look at the skills I have, and look at the experiences and the people I met, the conversations I
Mhm.
had, and all the things I've done. And actually, I can see those threads that have been pulled back to all those, that conversation and those people I met and that thing I went to and that thing that I did all those years ago. I can see now how that actually has filtered into and influenced where I am today. And that
Yeah.
thing that I learned, how that has been useful. But I think we're so busy, A, just barreling on to the next thing because, oh, new and shiny, let's go do the next thing. But also so busy kind of telling ourselves off for all the ways that we haven't stuck with the thing
Mm.
forever, that we
Mm.
aren't really stopping to acknowledge what amazing work we have already done, what amazing things we've already done and learned. And I think it's important that we do that because I think, yeah, there's a lot to be gained from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned earlier, it's also about, the beliefs and the judgments that we have internalized and the people that we are around. Because if we're not surrounded by people whose brain works like yours, it's also difficult to change this narrative inside. My very neuro normal husband, it doesn't mean badly, but he would say, like people ask me what you do, and I don't know anymore because you change all the time, and I'm like, yeah, well, it's I do that now. It's like I don't even want to remember. I tell them you work online, which is okay. It's not meaning, it's not meaning to hurt me or anything. But then when you're having conversations with someone like you and other people like you, I feel it could be really be something that helps women like us internalize a more positive story about how our brains work. And I want to ask you about your ADHD club now. Tell us about
The,
it.
yes, the quiet ADHD club. So this is what I set up when I had that kind of moment of where are all my quiet ADHD women? And I thought, let's create a club. I think I've created quite a few clubs in my various careers, and I think it stems back to that feeling of being outside of the club when I was younger and not
Mhm.
being part of the in crowd and in the in group. So I keep making clubs. So it's an online membership that I host on Substack, and within it there are lots of resources in terms of I do these things I call explorations. They're like deep dive topics where we explore particular sort of features and challenges of ADHD. So it might be about, kind of dealing with procrastination or finding focus or how to rest. Or we have like little challenges. So we did the inconsistently consistent project, which was all
Love the
about kind of
name.
challenging. I did it at the same time as the 100-day project was starting. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where you pick a thing and do it for 100 days, which I've done twice and was torturous by the end of it because doing the same thing for 100 days every single day was just beyond. So this instead was a project that we did where you could choose how long you do it for, what you're going to do, and you could have um, little breaks. You decide you weren't going to do it for the weekend or whatever. So we have all these different things. We have experts come and talk to us about like how to declutter or relationships in ADHD, how to sleep better, nutrition, hormones, all kinds of stuff. We have body doubling sessions twice a week. We have an accountability thread. We have lots and lots of lovely resources, lots of ways for people to get support and guidance, to connect in the community. And all of it is completely optional and low pressure. None of it is obligatory. There's no falling behind, there's no keeping up, there's no going at any particular speed. People can come to every body doubling session or none of them. It's entirely up to you because it's a space for introverted, sensitive women.
Yeah.
So the last thing I'm going to do is say to anybody that they've got to come along and speak up, because that's not what we do. That's not as such introverted, sensitive types. So it's all there for people to be able to make use of as much as little as they like at any given time. Yeah, and it's a quite a lovely space, and it's been going for a good nearly year and a half now. So there's a real wealth of information and resources there for people to be able to just access whenever they like. And you can read, you can listen, you can watch. It's a variety of ways that you can take it all in.
Lovely, wonderful. So we can find that, of course, on your Substack. I will link it under. It's the Quiet ADHD Club. Gabrielle, is there something else you'd like to share with us? Maybe a last word of wisdom for our audience.
I think the last thing I would say, and I think it's something that I know is very important to you, but we haven't actually touched upon that much there. I think is the whole sensitivity thing
Hmm.
and the being called too sensitive, and that was definitely something that was also. I think I was told I was too sensitive and that I needed to have a thicker skin and needed to be less sensitive in a way that people were trying to be helpful to me. They thought that that would prepare me for the outside world. But I
I can
realized
relate.
how, yeah. And I think a lot of us, it kind of, like you have to toughen up because the world is harsh and
Hmm.
you're not going to survive if you don't toughen up. And it was all about how we're the ones that are kind of wrong here and we have got to be better at being tough, not the world. The world doesn't have to change. The world is just fine. You have to change. And I think that understanding that sensitivity is absolutely not a flaw. And if anything, I mean, I'm not keen on the whole kind of deciding what's superpowers and what is not, but there is absolute power in sensitivity. And I think it can be a complete asset and not a liability. And certainly I think that for you and I as coaches, it's invaluable. And I think it makes us better coaches just, through being able to use our sensitivity. And yes, it can be overwhelming, but I think it's one of those things that understanding that your sensitivity is not a bad thing and that you don't have to toughen up to deal with the world. Yep, there's boundaries and there's understanding where, you end and other people begin, um, and handling the empathetic side. But understanding that your sensitivity is not a flaw,
Hmm.
that you don't have to toughen up, and that as a sensitive, introverted, ADHD woman, you are absolutely exactly who you are supposed to be. And
Yeah.
yes, things can be difficult. And yes, you need support, but there is absolutely nothing categorically wrong with you in any way, shape, or form for being those things.
Thank you so much for saying that. And yes, it's I think it's also a reminder that there is no way for us to toughen up, you know? It's like we can only be how we are. It's again a way we are wired. Hi honey, mommy's live on Substack, sweetie. Can you please can you please she's gonna be here soon. Hi, it's my son who's 5. What was I saying? That the message you should toughen up or wanting to adapt to the world just makes us feel inadequate and not wanting to interact with the world or feeling like we just shouldn't be there or it's not possible for us to live in any other way. So yes, thank you for saying that and reaffirming that there is no need to be someone else. You can be just yourself. It's also accepting that there's vulnerability in feeling that when we have so much empathy and so much care for others, you know, sometimes I wish I cared less, honestly. but but at the same time I wouldn't be me and I wouldn't be able to understand the world the way I understand it, understand the people and bring them this sense of being less lonely because we can then have compassion for them. We can then feel with them and really understand what they're going through. And that comes at the price of being overwhelmed and sometimes, you know, being feeling really vulnerable. Um, but anyways, how can we go through life without being vulnerable? It's the most beautiful things we could ever do. There's no love, there's no community, there's no togetherness without that vulnerability. So thank you so much for sharing that, Gabrielle. It's been a pleasure to have you on our series. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your wisdom. I'll add all your links in the replay with the description of the podcast if you're listening to this or on YouTube or on Substack, of course. And yes, I think that's it for today. Bye.
Thank you so much, Jessica.